Hello and welcome to Headlines. As Lebanon is preparing for the burial of former Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, during which the country is expected to come to a halt, its historically troubled and strained relations with neighboring Israel continue to remain worryingly tense, with barbed exhortations regularly exchanged between the sides. Although the date of the 18th of February marked the end of the extended deadline for the Israeli withdrawal from the country, in accordance with a truce that came into force on the 27th of November 2024, Israel still retains its military footprint in southern Lebanon, remaining in 5 locations described as strategic outposts, arguing that the Lebanese army is yet to fully implement its part of the deal by ensuring the removal of Hezbollah fighters and weapons from southern Lebanon. The view maintained by the government of Lebanon is that it is Israel that has failed to honor its obligations emanating from the 27th of November deal, and that the Israeli Defense Forces must withdraw completely, with their continuing presence, quote, in any inch of Lebanese territory being regarded as an occupation. Furthermore, the Israeli army is also reported to have launched airstrikes on sites along the Syria-Lebanon border as well, with the justification provided for the assault being that Hezbollah was using the territory to transfer weapons into Lebanon. Potentially, tensions on the ground may now even escalate further in view of the upcoming funeral of late Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, killed in an Israeli airstrike 5 months ago, due to take place this Sunday, which is expected to be attended by tens of thousands of people coming from Hezbollah strongholds across Lebanon and abroad. Today I'm pleased to be joined by Adnan Nasser, a news correspondent based in Beirut. Melhem Rieshi, member of the Lebanese Parliament, deputy head of the Lebanese Forces Party, and Ali Rizk, political and security affairs analyst. They are all joining from Beirut, Lebanon. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adnan, my first question is going to be addressed to you. Could you give us the sense of what's going on there in Lebanon? The latest report suggesting that with Israeli troops still remaining in southern Lebanon and Israel organizing airstrikes on different sites along the Lebanese-Syrian border, tensions are going to escalate. And there's a particular concern that there are security-related matters in view of the upcoming funeral of Hassan Nasrallah. Could you walk us through the situation going on there?
Well, I very much doubt there's going to be any security risks at the funeral itself. Right now, the Israelis, as you say, have organized airstrikes on the Lebanese-Syrian border. They claim to be justifying it because their attitude towards this is that Hezbollah is rearming itself. However, we don't see any serious evidence that the Hezbollah is preparing to launch any military strikes on the Israelis. They have sacrificed or handed over responsibility to the Lebanese state and have said in many speeches and statements that the Lebanese state is responsible for the defense of Lebanon. So I don't see any particular reason why the Israelis would need to do this. Furthermore, when you see the Israelis maintaining a military presence on the border, it defeats the purpose of having an agreement to stop the fighting in the first place, which is something that everybody wants. If the Israelis want to maintain peace with their neighbors, it's best not to provoke them with a military presence in the country.
Mr. Rieshi, the Israeli side is saying that they are doing their level best to make sure that the provisions of the 27th of November ceasefire deal are properly implemented. It's just the Lebanese army have not yet assumed control of all the key points in southern Lebanon. That's the reason why they are still there. What do you make of their argument?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I think what is happening in South Lebanon is against the agreement of the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel signed by the former government. And what will happen is that Israel must withdraw from the whole territory of Lebanon. Hezbollah must put down his weapons in South Lebanon and in the whole Lebanon. This is the agreement. And to implement the 1701 again, that is what we need and what we will be fulfilled.
Well, Israeli side is saying that they will withdraw completely once they are absolutely sure that all the Hezbollah militia groups are properly disarmed. Are they disarmed? Or what do you understand by Hezbollah being disarmed actually? We discussed it extensively with Adnan. There are different interpretations. What do you understand by Hezbollah being disarmed? There are three different interpretations. One is that they should be disarmed in the first place. They may remain there. Second interpretation is that they should be disarmed and asked move north of the Litani River. And third one is that they could actually be integrated into the official Lebanese army, which would amount to disarming as well. What is your take on these three interpretations?
I don't think it is a matter of day and night affair. It needs time to make it, and the Lebanese army must take it. We need to fulfill this mission with the support of the United States of America and the whole countries who are friends to Lebanon, and also the Arab countries. We trust the government, we trust the President of the Republic, Mr. Joseph Aoun, and we will take a little time to make it, but we need the help of the United States of America to make it sure and to have an end of this. The role, the original role of the Hezbollah is over. Hezbollah will stand as a Lebanese party now and will work as it is. But the matter is we need to be frank with him and to let the United States work with Israel to fulfill the mission of their withdrawal from the Lebanese territory.
Mr. Risk, Mr. Riesh is saying that American support is absolutely vital, and there has been an argument expressed by many analysts that Israeli side, in order to drive a wedge into the Lebanese society, has been specifically targeting Hezbollah strongholds in order to create this sense of division and cause those frictions. What do you make of that argument?
Regarding the American role or relying on the United States to force Israel into adhering to the agreement, I think that the signs aren't optimistic or aren't hopeful in that regard. From what we've seen thus far, the Trump administration is siding 100%, or let me say 90%, with the Israeli side. So relying on the American administration, in particular this one, the Trump administration, to force anything on Israel for the time being, I don't think that there are any indicators that the approach is going to succeed. We're seeing a continuation of what we saw during the Biden administration, whereby the Americans basically are giving the Israelis free rein to do whatever they want. I was somewhat more optimistic earlier on when the Trump administration appeared to force a ceasefire in Gaza. But as I said, after what we've seen now with the Americans allowing the extension, and now we're hearing about these 5 points, I think that pinning your hopes on the United States is probably for the time being a lost bet. Now, regarding your question about causing friction within Lebanese society, I'm not sure if that's an American deliberate plan or not. What I do know, however, or what seems to be clear, is that the Americans are on board with the Israelis 100% in trying to completely diminish the status of Hezbollah. And I think it's not just about arms or weapons, by the way. I think it goes broader than that. You saw what happened regarding the blocking or the cancellation of the incoming flights coming from Tehran, which were carrying Lebanese pilgrims, Lebanese Shia passengers. You also saw the Israeli raids, which you mentioned, on the Syrian border, on the Lebanese-Syrian borders. But regarding the cancellation of the flights from Iran in particular, I think that is a very dangerous, points to the possibility of a very dangerous game being played, which is to create sectarian tensions. You saw what happened, by the way, as well, with the army and how there were confrontations between the army and some of the Lebanese protesters. If things continue in this manner, this could be a very, very dangerous, extremely dangerous situation. And the American rhetoric, by the way, is not helping. Ortagos, the American Middle East envoy or deputy Middle East envoy, she came and said Hezbollah has been defeated, etc., speaking implicitly about the exclusion of Hezbollah. This is an Israeli agenda. And one would hope that the Americans and also some of the American allies in Lebanon would refrain from using such language, because in the end, that's not going to end out well for anyone in the country.
Adnan, we discussed the subject on a number of occasions in the past. What is Hezbollah's place in the Lebanese landscape when it comes to its political wing? We always tend to distinguish between its political and military wings, but many Lebanese colleagues have told us that actually that distinction is very artificial and it's not in reality there. What is the future for Hezbollah in the light of this talk about Lebanon shifting towards a new governance model, and the new governance model should probably entail something along the lines of civic nationalism beyond sectarian divisions?
Well, this is a very big question, and this will take a long time to answer. But in the short answer, Hezbollah still represents a large percentage of the Shia community. You know this from the election results. I mean, they still have a strong constituents in the south, in the eastern areas of Lebanon, in the southern Beirut neighborhoods. So this is still a relatively popular party. The party is not going to dissolve simply because there's a ceasefire and there's now discussion about integrating its weapons or disarming its armed wing. On the contrary, if Hezbollah were to play now normal politics and to embrace a more domestic policy of reconstruction and working with others in the political system, you may find the party gaining popularity in the long run. Furthermore, if the party is seen as the one that's holding itself, it's restraining itself, while the Israelis are increasing its strikes on the country, they can tell the other communities in Lebanon, other political players, look, we're prepared to follow international agreements. It's the Israelis that are violating international law and the sovereignty of the country. Work with us to win over the hearts and minds of the international community and push the Israelis back.
Mr. Rieshib, we talked about 27th of November ceasefire deal. It's not implemented fully. Israelis are accusing the government in Beirut. Lebanese government is accusing Israel. The Lebanon believes that Israeli presence amounts to occupation. But the question here is about the Hezbollah presence in southern Lebanon as well. What is the percentage of the blame that you would genuinely attribute to the Hezbollah when it comes to the fact that this deal has not been fully implemented yet?
I will not enter in this discussion like that, but I take into consideration the situation of the new presidency of Lebanon and the new government of Lebanon, who will take under control everything and must take under control everything. That is our position. That is what we support. We don't care about Israeli position. We care about Lebanese position and Lebanese sovereignty on this affair. That's why we must focus more and more to the government, our government, to rebuild this trust between Lebanon and the whole world. And
Mr. Rieshib, what are those limitations bearing upon the formation of that unified approach to be maintained by the government? Allow me to rephrase my question. You as a country have entered a new stage. You've got a new president, new prime minister. You have certain challenges emanating from outside. What are those limitations that are curbing your ability to present a united front as a country? Allow me to put my question in this way.
Let's say the limitation are that we are, let's say in a way or another, a newborn country. That's why it will take a little time more to let things fulfill.
Okay, right. Mr. Ali Risk, you are political and security affairs analyst. Israeli side has been claiming that they will need to maintain their military footprint in southern Lebanon in order to make sure that the tragedy of the 7th of October will never happen again. Do you accept that Israel does have a legitimate interest in terms of maintaining the military footprint, or do you believe that it's a mere rhetoric? Because probably truth must be somewhere in between, not within the extreme wings of articulation.
First of all, I'm not sure that maintaining this presence would thwart, if there is a plan to launch a October 7 style operation, I'm not sure that the presence on 5 points would be enough to thwart such a plan. That's number one. Number two, I don't think it's in Israel's interest itself to have such a presence. I think this is, if the Israelis intend to have this on a long term, I believe that's a serious strategic blunder, because these soldiers would become sitting ducks for resistance operations. Now, that could be by Hezbollah. It could be by average Lebanese citizens who would also lash out, who would have a very strong retaliation or response. Particularly now, by the way, as you mentioned, we have the funeral procession of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah on Sunday. Now, that has increased, the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah has even increased the sentiments of anger and fury towards Israel. So in the midst of these sentiments, to have a few hundred Israeli soldiers stationed on the borders, I think that's a real risk which the Israelis are taking. And I believe, by the way, that Hezbollah, in the long term, it's quite possible that it's going to emerge even stronger, because there are many people who supported the party but were not members of the party, who now want to join the party because Sayyid Nasrallah was such a popular figure and because they seek revenge against the Israeli side. So if you put all these elements together, I think that the Israeli presence, if they intend to have it in the long term, that wouldn't be the smartest of steps to take.
And when you say that Hezbollah will emerge stronger, do you mean militarily or as a political force, as part of the political life in Lebanon? Or you mean both?
Oh, I'm referring to the numbers of Hezbollah, the number of members.
Okay.
As I said, you had many people before who supported the party but were not members, but were very much admired Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, who we can't disagree was a uniquely charismatic figure. Now, because of his death, there are people who are going to now become motivated to join the party out of revenge against Israel. That's what I mean when I say that Hezbollah in the long term might emerge stronger. Now, it might be the case as well that Hezbollah will choose to become integrated into the state. Again, in the long term, its arms would be integrated, its weapons. I think that Hezbollah does not categorically refuse such an option. That needs some dialogue. But I would argue against the idea that Hezbollah has been completely diminished. I think that anyone who makes that assumption would be sorely mistaken.
I'm sorry, how do you envision the integration of Hezbollah into the official Lebanese state? Hezbollah, as a political party, is already part of the parliament, and some ministers are affiliated with this group. Do you mean it's incorporation of Hezbollah militia into the Lebanese army when you say integration into the state?
Yeah, I'm speaking about the integration of Hezbollah militarily. Hezbollah's weapons, Hezbollah's long-range missiles, its drones, that could possibly become part of the Lebanese army, the state arsenal. Now, a big question, however, which arises here is, would the Americans allow that scenario to happen? We all know that the Americans are committed to the Israeli military edge in the region, the qualitative Israeli military edge. And we all know that this government is very much, let's speak things as they are. This government, President Aoun, he was supported by the US. The US supported him coming into power. They supported Prime Minister Nawaf Salam coming into power. And this support is not free of charge. They expect these people to take certain actions against Hezbollah. So we have to wait and see how that turns out. Now, Joseph Aoun, he made a very important statement a few days ago, if you saw, when he said that the issue of Hezbollah's weapons will be addressed through dialogue. I think that was a very smart thing to say, saying that we're not going to go into any internal infighting to disarm Hezbollah. I think that's a smart way of doing things. And I think the best strategy for Lebanon, as I said, which would save face for everyone, would be for the Lebanese state, the Lebanese army, to become military capable. Now, that can happen either by qualitative weapons reaching the army or by Hezbollah's arms being integrated. But as I said, Hezbollah's arms being integrated, there you have to look at the Americans and what their agenda is.
Adnan, Mr. Ali Riz said that Americans would be against Hezbollah's integration to the official Lebanese state. What is your take on this?
Well, if they were to be against it, I think it's a mistake. I mean, this would be a victory for the United States and in some ways the Israelis, because now you have Hezbollah fully part of the state. They're not acting independently. To go to something that Ali had said, I think one of the best things that could help make the case for the Lebanese army is that we have qualitative weapons, as he's put it, and that can come through funding from the United States. It can come from also Saudi Arabia. Let's not forget, many years ago, the Saudis had promised a package deal of $3 billion for weapons to be purchased from France. Where are these weapons? Where is the funding? Now is the time to get the Lebanese army much more sophisticated weapons and defense capabilities, and then they can present the argument that Hezbollah is no longer necessary and the old role that it played has come to an end. But we need first the international community, the United States specifically, and potentially the Gulf states, to do the funding for the Lebanese armed forces.
See, and also my last question to all of you.
Can I
By all means, Mr. Riz, by all means, please.
Yeah, just I respectfully disagree with Adnan with the point being made that it would be a victory for Israel and the US if the Lebanese army or the Lebanese state becomes powerful or the Lebanese military possesses good capabilities. The problem with for Israel isn't with Hezbollah per se. The problem for Israel is to have a military entity which is capable of deterring Israel, which can be a counterweight to Israel. Now, whether that's Hezbollah, whether that's the Lebanese army, that doesn't matter. That's where Israel's problem lies. So if you take it from there, I would disagree with the assumption or the argument that merely replacing a military capable entity like Hezbollah with another military capable entity like a newly built Lebanese military will satisfy the Israelis or will allay the Israeli concerns. I don't think that will be the case. And unfortunately, the US always follows the Israeli lead 90% of the time in the Middle East. So I don't think, again, the issue isn't Hezbollah per se. It's having anyone who can be a counterweight to Israel that can successfully deter Israel in Lebanon.
I would just like to make a follow-up to what Ali said. For me as a Lebanese citizen, it isn't up to the Israelis to decide Lebanon's defense policy. That's up to us as Lebanese citizens. That's number one. Number two, I would rather let the Lebanese state be that counterbalance rather than any independent militant group. But I don't mean to imply, when I say victory, I don't mean to imply that it's a defeat for the Lebanese. I just simply believe that the Lebanese need to come up to their own defense strategy, and that's really where the matter should lie.
And my last question, and this question is addressed to all of you, and I will start with Mr. Riesche, is about this latest talk about Lebanon charting a new image and possibly eventually emerging as a country following the principles of neutrality. Do you think in that complicated landscape within which Lebanon finds itself, with all of its neighbors and strained relations with probably all of them, Lebanon would be able to a neutral country? And what do you understand by neutrality when it comes to Lebanon? First, please, Mr. Riesche.
I think neutrality is the real solution for the Lebanese country. Even if it will be imposed over Lebanon by the UN Security Council or built in from the Lebanese communities or the Lebanese people in all and all. We have no solution to have an end with the Lebanese problem without the neutrality. And let's say an active neutrality like Austria. We will stand with the Palestinian cause, but not through military action from South Lebanon. It is over to have military action from Lebanon against anyone. We have to stay aside from the whole problems in the whole world. Military-wise, I mean. But we can support any kind of causes, any kind of what we need for human being in the whole world. except acting military, supporting any kind of causes by military way. It is not the role of Lebanon. The role of Lebanon, because this country is pluralistic, is a country of is a neutral country, an active country, a country of message, a country who must have everything concerning neutrality, everything that will be prosper and rebuild our country again, but through neutrality and active neutrality. And we don't have any other solution for the Lebanese cause to many years to come except neutrality.
And by neutrality, you mostly understand military position, as I understand. It's still perfectly, Lebanon is still perfectly entitled to have an opinion on different matters.
Military position shall be like Austria exactly, or shall be like Switzerland. We don't have any interest to enter in any war against anyone. This must have an end, because we destroy our country by ourselves, because we enter that war. We are not equal in any coming war. We have to stop this in many ways, or stop it forever.
Same question to you. Do you think that active neutrality is what Lebanon should aspire to achieve at some point soon?
Asking me?
Yes.
Look, I think that the bigger question is, will Lebanon be allowed to exercise neutrality? Even if Lebanon wanted to, you have a very hostile entity, Israel, especially now with the most extremist fascist right-wing government in Israel's history. Can Lebanon be neutral? Many of these people like Smotrich, some of them speak about establishing settlements in Lebanon, and they speak about the Israeli land or the Israeli project stretching to Lebanon. So can Lebanon be neutral with such a neighbor? And in addition to that, there's another neighbor, which also I think potentially is even more dangerous. Syria now under the leadership of Ahmad al-Shara. Now, even if Ahmad al-Shara is sincere about his intentions to clamp down on extremism, there are many others, I believe, close to him who are not serious. And there have been clashes, by the way, on the Lebanese-Syrian border. And there are many in Syria who think that they have a score to settle with the Shia community in Lebanon. So there are many factors which might make it difficult for Lebanon actually to exercise neutrality.
So what you're effectively saying that Lebanon may want to be neutral, but it will not be allowed to be neutral. Mr. Rieshi, you want to say something there? Please, by all means.
Yes,
very briefly.
Yes, I want to answer on this because of those things, Lebanon must be neutral and must be active in his neutrality, and must be supported by big countries like United States, like Russia, like, let's say, the United Nations Security Council, to save his neutrality. And it is not the first time in history. We were in Mount Lebanon in 1860, and we go for neutrality, and we have, after all, around 50 years, till the World War I, 50 years of peace and prosperity because of our neutrality in Mount Lebanon. What we are doing today, or are thinking about today, is to expand this neutrality to the whole Lebanon by the support of the Lebanese community and the United Nations Security Council. And I think with that, the Syrian government, neither the Akka government or the Israel today, will attack Lebanon anymore, or will touch Lebanon anymore.
Well, thank you to all of you. Adnan, very briefly from you, in a very concise way, please, and then I need to wrap up.
I will just say that I support the concept of neutrality. However, for Lebanon to be a neutral state, we need to have a strong army with a strong central government that takes a clear position that no occupying force is allowed to remain on Lebanese territory. That includes the Israelis. And we need the United States to facilitate this neutrality and tell the Israelis to withdraw completely from Lebanon.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much indeed. This for Adnan Nasser, a news correspondent based in Beirut. Melham Rieshi, member of the Lebanese parliament, deputy head of the Lebanese Forces Party, and Ali Rizk, political and security affairs analyst. All of them joined from Beirut, Lebanon. See you very soon.